An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, but whenever that prevention is in the form of idling your motorcycle for 3 to 5 minutes every 2 weeks to winterize it, that prevention can become a poison. The biggest amperage draw to this motorcycle is not while it's running, it's starting it. Idling your motorcycle for 3 to 5 minutes is not going to properly recharge the battery with all of the juice that you just used to start it. Condensation, 12-letter word, Latin in origin, translated to mean damage to your motorcycle's engine. Normally, condensation's of no worry to the average motorcycle rider because your engine gets up to proper operating temperature during your normal ride. But idling for 3 to 5 minutes in the middle of winter, you might as well just be pouring water inside your engine. This is not your grandfather's motorcycle, although technically this one was my grandfather's, but that's besides the point. The point is, there's a better way to winterize your motorcycle. We're going to start it off by getting all this road grime and dust off of her. You know, she'd been riding pretty hard this season. We're going to reward her with a nice little wash. I love time travel. See how easy that was? All nice and shiny. I just gave it a nice good wash and wax, you know, something to protect it during the winter while she sleeps. A big killer of motorcycle tires is low air. Whenever it has low air, it sets and creates a dead spot, which can create cracks. So if you're going to store your motorcycle for any time, go ahead, check the tire PSI, make sure you're in a good range. I have heard stories of people suspending the motorcycle from the roof with ratchet straps to keep the tires off the ground, but to each their own. I'm at 38 PSI, which is perfect. Next, we got fluids. You want to go ahead and top these off if they are low, just get them in a normal range. You got your brake fluid, if applicable. You got your engine oil, if applicable. If you're a Harley, it's probably all on the concrete underneath you. Then you got your coolant, if applicable. And last but not least, gasoline. It should be applicable to everybody. Metal gas tanks are not invulnerable to condensation, and you really don't want water in your fuel. So if your gas tank is metal, go ahead and fill it up all the way to eliminate any vapor space, and if it's plastic, drain it. While you're doing this, definitely don't want to do that. The general consensus is ethanol-free gas will last about 3 to 6 months before going stale. What we're trying to do is prevent oxidation by adding a fuel stabilizer. Here, I'm using Staple. If your gas has ethanol blended into it, like at the pump, generally expect 1 to 3 months before it absorbs moisture and turns the gas bad. If you're one of those rich people and have fuel injection, you don't have to worry about this next step, which is winterizing the fuel system. If you're poor, like I am, then you got a carbureted motorcycle. Luckily, it's very easy to winterize these motorcycles if you know what you're doing. There's 3 primary schools of thought on winterizing a motorcycle with a carburetor. That is to fill the carburetor with stabilized gas, it's to drain the carburetor, or screw it, it'll be fine, just park it. I'm going to go with option 2. I personally like to drain my carburetors. Stabilized gas won't hurt a carburetor sitting in there for 4 or 5 months. But me, I would rather leave no stone unturned, so I'm going to go ahead and empty the carburetor. There's a few ways you can do that. You can either drain the carburetor, or you can run the bike with the petcock off, so that way gas isn't getting to the carburetor. And then, you know, the bike will automatically shut off whenever the carburetor is empty. Now we just filled the gas tank up completely with gas to avoid water contamination and corrosion. Our cylinders can be vulnerable to this. So what I'm going to do is called fogging the cylinder. What that is you remove the spark plugs and you spray just a touch of WD-40 inside the cylinder, and that it coats the walls. And WD-40 does what its name suggests. It displaces water. WD-40, water displacement 40. Before you fog the cylinders, you might want to let it cool down. WD-40 is very flammable. I don't want it to go kaboom in your face. Give it about 30 minutes, an hour, depending on how cold it is outside. You don't want the WD-40 to instantaneously explode in your face when you fog the cylinders. Now's also a good time to look at your spark plugs. But you get your can of WD-40. That's it, just one little touch. All you're trying to do is get a light coat of oil on the inside. Anytime I take my spark plugs off, I like to apply a little bit of dielectro grease to the inside of the ignition coil wire. And again, what is this protected from? Water corrosion. Do you see the theme? So that's in there good. Repeat this process with all 4 cylinders. As far as the electrical system is concerned, the only component that needs winterizing is the battery. Most of us are running lead acid batteries, which I'm going to disconnect it and take it in somewhere where the temperature is more stable and put it on a trickle charger. Some people leave it on the motorcycle with a trickle charger, and that's fine. Batteries, especially lead acid batteries, they tend to sulfate less in cold weather, but they also tend to accept less of a charge. So you don't have to take it inside, but if you're going to keep it on a small amperage float charger, it'll accept that and fluctuate the levels better if it's somewhere inside like a garage instead of outside. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and take mine off and just set it off to the side on a trickle charger. I always leave the bolts inside the battery so that way I don't lose them. Vive la resistance. The French destroyed stuff when they say that. This battery is much like the French politicians and monarchs during that time. Resistance will lead to its death. This battery may not be beheaded, but that increase in resistance will cause increased heat in the terminal connections, which can lead to premature failure of this battery. So to prevent corrosion, what we're going to do is we're going to use a wire brush to clean the terminals, and then we're going to apply a thin layer of grease so that way it's a good connection. Now that we got our battery out of the motorcycle, what we're going to do is we're going to set it up on an automatic trickle flow charger. What that does is that lets the electrolyte level naturally drop, and then whenever it gets to a certain point, it'll raise it back up, and it just continually fluctuates. A killer of batteries is whenever the electrolyte stays at the same level and it creates a layer of what's called sulfate on the lead plates, and so that way it can't exchange electrons properly. So a trickle charger, again, negates that. If you don't have a specific trickle charger, you just have an automatic charger that will just continuously charge it. You can charge it for a few days and then let it off the charger for about 3 weeks, and then just replug it in, and that pretty much does the exact same thing. Oh, rats, says the YouTuber who's forgotten what the last step of winterizing his motorcycle is. And with rats, you'd be correct. The final step of letting this sleeping beauty lie is to let her get some peaceful sleep. We don't want intruders or attackers, including the form of mice. So, we got us a little friend today. Mousetraps. I don't think there's such thing as a bad mouse. They are just doing what nature intended them to do. But unfortunately, they cause damage. So, it's kind of a necessary evil, but I do want to protect my motorcycle. So I'm going to set a trap in the most humane way possible that I can. So she's ready for her nice deep sleep. It's a sad day, but she deserves a break. If you do anything different, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Let me know what you do if you have any questions as well. But this is Octane Restorations. Thanks for watching.